Hello and welcome to the first Online Warriors episode of spring 2022. We made it. Winter's over. Just kidding. It's probably not for most of you. It's not over for us. If I looked out my window right now, which I'm not, but if I did, there'd be snow out there. I'm Illeagle 86. Techtic and Nerdbomber, you know. You've probably listened before, and if you haven't, there's three of us. We're going to talk about snow, even though it's March, whatever. When does this come out? The 23rd?
Yes, it does.
If you look out your window right now, this is a test, because I know you guys, your recording situation is, you're like looking out a window, basically. Can you see snow when you look out the window?
I don't see any snow. I do see, though, there is a street light on our street, and it is currently flickering on and off. So that's a little creepy.
My blinds are closed, so I can't look out the window because I'm a private person. But if I did, I'm pretty sure I would see snow. So happy spring. I mean, look, the groundhog has spoken. We talked about the groundhog like 5 weeks ago, and it's not been 6 weeks yet. So there's more. Has it been 6 weeks? It's been 6 weeks since Groundhog Day. I guess winter is over. Happy spring. Get outside. I don't know, do whatever it is you do outside. It's been a while for me. I'm going to have to reacquaint myself with that. But as I said, I'm Illeagle 86. I'm one of your three hosts. I have Nerdbomber here with me. Techtic is quietly working.
He's lurking.
I'm stewing.
He's always stewing. And, you know, we're all going to be here. We're all going to talk about various things. The biggest of which, maybe that's a judgment call, but the biggest of which to me is Hogwarts Legacy. We got a state of play for that last week. We're going to be talking about Amazon and MGM and the implications of the latest mega deal to hit the 5 big companies that exist. And we're going to be talking a little bit about Miss Marvel. We got a trailer for that last week. A lot of things to break down there. Before we start with those things, though, I want to tell a very brief story. I had a near-death experience today.
Dude, another one?
I had a brush with death. Not really.
You're living a very dangerous life. Let me just tell you that.
Here's what happened. We had Indian food for dinner. Okay. It's great. First of all,
like
if you've never had Indian cuisine, no, it's not. It's actually not going where you think. I know what you're thinking. He pooped his pants. No, that's not what happened. What did happen was, so it was actually grocery store Indian food, which sounds bad, but it was really good. And you have to just take my word for that. But it was one of those, you put it in the oven and you cook it in a bag. It's like I don't even know how to describe it. It's basically a big plastic bag you put in the oven and it steams it in there or something. I don't know. I'm not a scientist. We ate the food. It was good. And then I was going to transfer some of the chicken into a Tupperware for leftovers. And I was looking in this bag, trying to see where the pieces of chicken were in the sauce that was in there so I could fish the chicken out and put it in the... And I got a piece of chicken on the fork and I was pulling it out and then it dropped off the fork and dunked back into the sauce. And Indian sauce flew up directly into my eye, but directly into my eye. I've never had so much fluid go into my eye at one time. It was like this. It probably looked like a cartoon. It's like a comical amount of butter sauce going into my eye. And when I say butter sauce, what I mean is Indian butter sauce. It was spicy whatever. So my first thought is, well, that's it. I'm down to one eye for the rest of my life. It actually wasn't that. I'm surprised and pleasantly surprised to report that it wasn't that bad. My fiance could corroborate. I may have been a little dramatic about it. You ever have something happen to you and you're this is gonna hurt so bad that it might kill me and my life might be over. And then half a second passes and you're oh, it's fine. That's basically what happened. So I just wanted to try and recreate that thrill by saying I had a near-death experience when I just got Indian food in my eye. Worst things have happened. I'm still here to talk to you about it. What did you guys have for dinner? Is that okay for me to ask you publicly what you have for dinner, or is that?
Yeah, of course. We have pizza and wings, homemade.
Oh my! Homemade pizza and wings.
Oh
okay.
Yeah.
See, that's now. Give me a sense of crust thickness. If you could,
I would say it's not quite as thin as New York style pizza. Definitely not as thick as Chicago style pizza.
So you're talking Detroit style. Almost.
Yeah, something
that's
like that.
The middle. Okay.
But I'm on board. So it's a really good pizza. I give Techtic all of the credit for making this because he does a phenomenal job. He's become a real pizza chef over here. So he makes his own bread dough.
Is the bread? Yeah, the bread man's back, right?
Bread man is back.
Bread man's how you make.
Shout out to the bread man.
And then he puts cheese and sauce on it, but also, and this is very important, so you can buy 2 different types of pepperoni. There is a type of pepperoni called cup and char, which is a very northeastern type of pepperoni. And then there's your standard flat pepperoni. And cup and char really elevates it to the next level. It essentially curls up into little pools of grease, which sounds gross, but I mean, this is an otherwise healthy pizza and it just sends the pepperoni to the next level, and banana peppers.
And a light dusting
Ooh.
of garlic powder in the dough when you're spreading it out on the pan.
Do you go like oregano? Do you sprinkle the oregano on there? Because some people do that. I think
Nope,
that's a little too much.
just all you need is a light dusting of garlic powder.
That sounds exquisite. So we all have full bellies coming to you, recording in the evening because we always do that. And we're going to be talking to you about the things I already mentioned. So why don't we dive in? Why don't we hit the big boy first? Why don't we talk about Hogwarts Legacy? And spoiler alert, well, multiple spoiler alerts. One, if you haven't yet watched the state of play, or at least like a sizzle reel of the state of play, I don't know, maybe it's weird to call it spoilers, that we're going to be spoiling what happens in the state of play, but if you want the genuine
The reveal
experience, like
Jinx.
you should go watch the video, because it's a lot is discussed. It's like at least 15 minutes long. And they just like go through, like, it's all gameplay. They're just like, here's all the things you can do. Spoiler number 2, this is going to be the biggest game of the holiday season.
You think?
Like, I think it's a foregone conclusion. If
Yeah.
only because I can't think of any other games that are coming out this holiday season. I'm sure some will, but like this is a huge announcement, and the game in all ways but one, and the one I'll get to later, in all ways but one, this state of play impressed me. I was very on board with everything they did. I think the most important element of the game, which is of course the spell casting, they look to have nailed it. Like I no notes on that part for me. Like I was expecting to be like, what are they doing with the spell casting?
Every
like, there's a lot of
time-
wand. Like it looks so good.
Yeah, they were behind the back. That was great. And every time that I had like a comment, they almost immediately addressed it. I was like, oh man, there's not this. Oh wait, great. Oh man, there's not that. And then the thing that took the longest to address, and I hope other people got this vibe, was I was watching the gameplay. And I was like, gosh, you have to walk. This character never runs. It's going to be so boring traveling about. And then they're like, oh, and by the way, here's a broomstick. And I'm like, oh, baby, yes.
If there's not like full on Quidditch games in this, like that is a miss though. I will say that. They didn't address Quidditch, I don't think at all.
That's a good point. They did not mention that. I was about to say, can you apparate? But you can't apparate on Hogwarts grounds. To all you Harry Potter folks out there.
Well,
I
they
almost
did.
just lost my Harry Potter card.
Oh, I want to address Nerdbomber's comment. They did show someone with a broomstick wearing the Quidditch uniform, so it's likely that there is Quidditch in this.
Right, but like I want to try out for the team and I want to play Quidditch. And if I suck, I want to not make the team. Like I want it to be an authentic experience.
I guess the question is, why wouldn't they, like, unless that part of the game is like not done yet or something? Like, why would they not show? Because, like, everyone's thinking that. Everyone's like, where was the Quidditch? You know? It's like one of the few things that they did not. The cool thing about this, like, this game has done a very smart thing in that, like, you don't go into this game thinking, where's Professor McGonagall? Like, no, you're not going to be thinking any of that because this takes place in the 1800s. So, like, there's, besides the ghosts, which they mentioned that at one point, I believe, there's no known characters. It's all new people, which I think is
It's smart.
fantastic decision. It's a fantastic decision. Making a plot that is not involved in like the actual Harry Potter-ness of things is also very smart, because if you were a student at Hogwarts when Harry Potter was like a student, you'd hate him, right?
Yeah, your life would be overshadowed.
I would hate
Everything would be Harry.
It wouldn't even be that it would be overshadowed. I'd be like, what did he break? Like, he's just breaking stuff every year he's there. The whole school's coming apart because of him. He's ruining everything.
The other side too is
I don't
when they address the beast side of it, where you can collect beast and tame beast, that also allowed them to really expand on the franchise, both leveraging what we've seen from the Harry Potter Hogwarts series and the Fantastic Beasts series, and even just DLC beyond that. They can really just keep going and just make this ever expansive.
Yeah, they are going to. Well, you know what excited me the most, besides maybe the spell casting? And I didn't know this was going to excite me.
Going to
But-
school, like legit.
The potions. Like, when they were talking about the potions, I was like, this is the best. And I want to draw one maybe inane parallel, but you know what Spider-Man had that Spider-Man Miles Morales did not have, that I missed so much?
What?
Was the research. You went to the lab and you did the like little shape puzzle things.
Oh,
Those were
that's
amazing.
right. I forgot about those.
Those were amazing. And it was just like, do this thing and you'll be better at the game. I was like, done. Easy. Fun.
Yeah, I do want to say I am incredibly excited on how they're going to do the potions, as well as there seems to be some elements of skill trees that you can sort of expand
Yes.
upon, which that Absolutely. I love a good skill tree. The thing that I do have questions about, and maybe you guys have some insight on, is how exactly does the sorting hat work? Now, is it a randomizer, or are there character
No,
traits
it's gonna
that you
ask you
put in
questions.
beforehand? But they didn't show that, and I want to know, like,
Well, I mean, think about how boring that would be in a trailer, though, having someone sit down and answer a bunch of questions.
yeah, but like, is it going to be like, do you consider yourself adventurous? Or is it going to be like in Pokemon Rangers, where it's totally arbitrary questions, and it's like, this is exactly who you are. We know this because we're creepy.
I think they're going to do some kind of like creepy mind game thing where they like nail it down.
Yeah.
Because I mean, they already did that with there's been a jillion iterations of the sorting hat where they kind of do that, where it's not direct questions, yet somehow they kind of nail down your personality.
Yeah, I would very much like it to not be like you were saying, Techtic, like, are you brave? It's like, come on, like, don't allow me to choose my house, basically. Like, I do not want to be able to just like choose to be a Gryffindor or a Ravenclaw. If I take the sorting hat quiz and I'm a Slytherin, well, I'm Slytherin. Like, I want to be able to take the quiz, and then whatever the result is,
Live authentically.
you know, I'm not injecting my own bias of what I would like to be into it. Like, I think that would heighten the experience.
I think I'm either going to be Hufflepuff or Gryffindor.
I know
My
I'm
prediction.
probably Ravenclaw.
I want to be a Ravenclaw. I'm really concerned I'm going to be a Slytherin. Like, if that wasn't clear before, like, I'm really concerned they're going to be like, yeah, you're a jerk. Go down to the dungeon common room, you jerk.
You know what we should do? If we're all
Yeah.
completely different houses, we should get another artist to draw out each of our animated characters as a Harry Potter house. I think that'd be a really cool cover for our Twitters.
Yeah, and like Nerdbomber is like smart Ravenclaw girl, and you're a brave Gryffindor boy, and I'm just like some dungeon troll Slytherin boy, just evil, just
You could
like
pull off a
has
good
like a
Draco.
giant
I was just going to say, you look kind of like Draco Malfoy.
boy. That's high praise. I mean, if you're telling me I look at least a little bit like Tom Felton, I can die happy now. This is very exciting. Like as a Harry Potter fan, watching all of this, it was just, I think the story sounds interesting. The Goblin Rebellion, I'm into that. I don't need more detail than that too. Like they said that, and I was like, yeah, okay. Like I don't need further details. Don't give them to me. The one thing I mentioned before, there was one thing that I was not impressed by. What am I about to say? I'm gonna ask you two to guess what I'm about to knock. I'll give you a hint.
The height of the troll.
I've been knocking it, I think, for the past few games that we've talked about on this show.
Open world?
The graphics.
Oh, I didn't think the graphics looked that bad.
I know that we're still, and we've been saying this about the last few. Like, this is early. Like, I mean, it's not early development, but like, there's still almost a year until this game comes out. There's polishing that will be done, but I don't know. Like, I just somewhere along the line, and I'll have to like go back through my recent plays to like what made me think video game graphics are just so much better than I'm seeing. But
Horizon Zero Dawn.
it might be Horizon Zero Dawn. It might be one of the Last of Us
Forbidden West,
games.
whatever.
Yeah, I haven't played Forbidden West, but yeah, I've seen footage for it. It's just like, there must have been some game at some point. And by the way, sorry, Nerdbomber, it's not Mass Effect. it's not Mass Effect Legendary Edition that has me feeling that way. It's just, there must be some recent game I played that makes me feel like every game should and needs to be photorealistic. But I'm watching trailers now, and I'm like, something's a little off with that character. Like, I'm being very nitpicky.
Well, that's the thing.
one nitpick that I have about it.
Graphically, I thought it was fine. The only thing that did seem off was like character models. The character models looked a little outdated, but in terms of like the background landscapes and the environments that you were walking through in this trailer, like those looked great. Like when they had the pan, I don't think it might have been at the end of the trailer, but it's basically Hogwarts with the changing weather and sky behind it. Like that looked gorgeous. But the character models did look old-ish.
The spell casting also, like, I think looked great. It's just like, when all the characters are, like you said, just a bit like, I don't know if it is that they're outdated or just that they're a little bit off or something. Something about them
I will say the one
immediately
thing
rubbed me the wrong way.
that I did find off was the AI traversing the world. So one thing that kept kind of poking out at me is you're walking around, you're unlocking these crazy puzzles, right? And then there'll just be like a student walking by, like nothing's happening. Like I feel like there should be like a reaction, like whoa.
Let me push back on that. This is Hogwarts. Crap like that's probably happening all the time. You're walking to class, someone turns into a toad, you're like, yep, just Tuesday. Like, I don't know. I guess it depends. It's all great. Like, if someone's, like, changing a wall of the castle into a giant unicorn,
That's
then, like,
just
yeah,
it.
you should probably at least
He
look at
turned
it.
the wall into a door. and it was like a wall mirror, and it turned into a door painting thing with steps coming out of the ground, and the student would just walk by like, whatever.
And to be
Like,
clear,
same crap as always.
they do make it
Yeah.
clear that your character is going to be wielding a sort of magic that isn't really prevalent. So that would be kind of something that people would take notice of, no?
Yeah, they're just like, oh, this fucking guy again.
Do you think you can change? 'Cause they might have mentioned it, but like they mentioned like talents, abilities, skill trees, everything. I want to be able to like, presumably at the start of the game, they're going to be like, this is your wand. It has, dragon heartstring in it or something. What if like halfway through the game, I want to just like start over with a totally different wand? Like I want to know about the wand stuff. That was one thing I feel like they didn't get into a whole lot.
Do you think it would like change the color of the way like certain...
Yeah, or like change, like I'm sure certain wands, certain spells are better with certain wands, right? So you should be able to at some point maybe pivot and say, okay, I'm going to go to, a phoenix feather now, and that allows me to cast better shields. Or so like something like that, where almost like loadouts in a shooter game, right? Like it should be like, okay, I have this. I'm trying to think of wand combinations and like wand cores, and I'm blanking. I got Phoenix Feather and Dragon Heartstring. There's one that it's eluding me. I can't think of it. But anyways, I want to be able to change wands and like change the way you can play the game, I guess. Because this is a game too, like immediately struck me as a game like, I'm going to 100% this. Well, there's many options, and like anyone comes up to me with a side quest, I am putting everything else aside and doing it. And I'm not saying that's a healthy way to operate. Spoiler alert, I'm going to talk about Mass Effect more later. And that's, again, still what I'm struggling with. But like, I'm watching this trailer and I'm like, some first year nose picker is going to come up to me and say, hey, I lost my invisibility cloak, and I'm going to be like, okay, I'll go to the ends of the earth to do it for you. So like for that reason, I would imagine I'm going to be playing this for a while, and at a certain point I'm going to be like, hey, why don't I switch wands out? That seems like a cool thing for me to be able to do.
Speaking of how much that this game is packing in, like this does seem like the game that we all waited for if you were ever a fan of the series, basically living out your own adventure at Hogwarts, writing your own path. Like it seems like you can choose to be a good wizard or a bad wizard. It seems like you can choose who you want to befriend or not. It's like obviously the different houses mean that you're going to have different experiences, just who you interact with, other characters. Then there's also like the creatures, the spells, the potions. Do you think that this is too ambitious? Like, do you think they can pull it off? Because that was the one thing, as I'm watching this 15-minute trailer, they're throwing all of these different things at you, and they're all super cool, like open world kind of exploration. You can make friendships that like kind of like in Mass Effect, you get to choose basically who your companions are. There's different paths to the story. Right. They show at one point, the Avada Kedavra, and like, I don't know, it just seems like a lot. And it seems like a lot for one game to get right, because I've seen other studios who have a long history of making great games kind of fall flat when they try to take on too much. And I'm a little skeptical, a little bit.
I think they can do it. I think they can do it, and like, so I totally hear you. It's a huge wait, and like, but we've been waiting for a long time for it. I think that's one thing to consider. Like I don't know. I guess I don't know the development history of this game. I would hope the reason it took so long is they've been working out kinks for many years, so they should be able to avoid pitfalls like that. One thing that I will say I'm worried about, and not like critically worried, but like this game has a lot of things being stacked on top of it. I don't want the straw that breaks the camel's back to be putting in like overly Easter eggy, like referential, like I don't want you to meet a character named like, Matthias Weasley or something, and he does something Weasley. Like, no, I want almost full detachment from the Harry Potter universe, aside from the fact that you're at Hogwarts. Like even the ghost thing, I'm like, I get that. That's thematic. It's nice, but like, they better not be mentioning stuff that's like a wink to Harry Potter. Like, I don't know why I'm like against that, but I just like, I want this game to chart its own course and do its own thing and not be beholden to, what we already know, because I don't think that's very interesting.
Well, I also feel like the more they can kind of distance themselves, like obviously it's a Harry Potter game. It's Hogwarts. You can't distance yourselves from Harry Potter. But I think the more you can distance yourself from J.K. Rowling's content, I mean, that's kind of the elephant in the room with anybody watching this. Like, that's something.
There's continued posturing there, and for good reason. Like, I think, I'm trying to remember where I saw it, but like, it might have been, I don't know if it was in the State of Play or if it was like somewhere else, an article I read about it or something. They were like, we did not, like, I don't remember what the phrasing was, but it was like, we consulted J.K. Rowling as little as possible for this or something.
I think the
like,
best way to have subtle winks to it and really have no ties is through the apparel. So a particular example I want to use is you had mentioned, wand going back and changing it and customizing it. Lucius's wand pimp cane thing. That would be a great addition to my swagger, but it's a subtle wink and it's not really like anything canon to the story. It could just be this guy makes pimp canes and he happened to buy from him.
That's a pretty cool example. I can get there with that. I'm trying to think of another example that's as good as that one, because that's just a really good example. And I can't. Good. Just put that in the game. Like, put that in and call it a day.
We want that swagger.
Right. So yeah, this game, I think, is the only release information we have on it. Holiday. 2022.
Dumbledore's Phoenix is another good one.
Yeah. Well, that's
a little too on the nose.
Why? The Phoenix never dies. It just reborns. There has to be a Phoenix in here. There has to be.
If we're trying to separate ourselves from J.K. Rowling and her inaneness, I guess, that's a pretty big figurehead in the books and everything.
I'm dead set on having a Gryffindor wizard pimp. Okay, I want the staff. I want a phoenix on my. Maybe I'm turning into a pirate. I don't quite know yet.
But
that's what I want.
I think the Phoenix, because there's a new movie coming out. I don't know if we talked about the trailer on this show. It does not look that good, in my opinion. Like, and in fact, I think it looks not good. I think they're like teasing that like that's when Fox is introduced. Is in that movie, and it's like Jude Law Dumbledore. So it's certainly not like 1800s wizard, whatever. It's probably like, I don't know, 1950s or something. I don't know what the timeline is. Anyways, I'd be surprised if we saw Fox. We'll see come holiday 2022. And in the meantime, if you haven't watched this State of Play, you should go watch it. It looks to be something that, again, I expect it would be a big deal, if not the top selling game of the holiday season. So go give it a peek. Amazon has made an $8.5 billion deal, just pocket change. And they now officially own MGM, which, fun fact, Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer. I don't know if people ever actually read the logo when the lion roars, but...
What else are you looking at? Why would you be watching the lion? You're reading text.
Right. Well, that's what I'm doing. So, notable properties that are owned by MGM that are now owned by Amazon. The biggest one is James Bond. And for those of you that did not see the most recent James Bond, without getting into spoiler town, it did leave the franchise in a very good, like, let's give it to Amazon and let them do something with it state. So I don't know, like, to what extent this deal was known when that film was made, but James Bond ends with like a pretty significant change on the horizon. Let me just put it that way. The Rocky franchise, which I guess you would now call the Creed franchise predominantly, is also owned by MGM. In television, the one I want to highlight here. So Handmaid's Tale is one. I have not watched any Handmaid's Tale. Shark Tank. This is a show that it's begging to be Amazonized, right? Because,
actually, not to cut you off, but The Handmaid's Tale, that's a Hulu exclusive, so I wonder how that will work.
Well, how it's going to work is that's not going to be a Hulu exclusive anymore. that's what I imagine will happen, but I guess we don't know for sure. So Shark Tank, first of all, have you guys ever watched, I haven't watched like a full episode of Shark Tank, but I've watched like clips of it. I think I did watch a full episode of it
taking notes when I'm watching that show.
Yeah, we've watched it extensively.
This show, for those that don't know, is like inventors and like people who want to like start little companies selling these things. They come on and they pitch to Mark Cuban and some other people about like, hey, invest in my company and I'll give you a whatever % stake, or they make offers. I don't really know how that part works, but this is a perfect show for Amazon, right? Because so my fiance and I watched the first season. I didn't so much watch the second season, but there's this show on Amazon. I believe it's called Making the Cut. The listeners can fact check me on that, but it's modeling, right? It's Tim Gunn and Heidi Klum, and it's basically like Project Runway, but Amazon. So there's like these designers that are making clothes, and then models model them, and they're all judged, and then someone gets voted off, basically. And the cool thing that Amazon does is, you're watching it on your Fire Stick or whatever, and every episode, the person who makes the best design and like has the winning look, quote unquote, that exact outfit goes on Amazon and you can buy it. You hit a button and it's boom, there it is. Like literally the Fire Stick like prompts you like, do you want to buy this kind of thing? So just, I'm sure Amazon is like, we'll take that, we'll transmit that idea or transport that idea over to Shark Tank, and bam, we're making more money than we were before. Like it just, to me, it's a very sensible thing. I don't know, it's what they were thinking. Maybe I just gave them the best idea ever, but I'm not that smart. They probably already had that idea. 4,000 films, 17,000 television episodes going to Prime Video. What does this mean?
I mean, that's a huge boon for anyone who's subscribing to Prime Video, because like, I don't know about you guys, but there's not a whole lot of content on Prime Video that I can't get on the likes of Hulu or Netflix.
Yeah, I feel like Prime Video, for me, I've watched things on Prime Video a decent amount, but most of the time, it seems like Prime Video is a way station where like, I remember back when my fiance and I, a couple years ago, 3-4 years ago, we were binging Survivor, and like they had a certain number of seasons of that show that you could watch, and they were the seasons that like weren't already on Netflix or Hulu. Like it seems like all of the streaming services just kind of share Survivor, and like there's certain shows where like you'll find like random seasons of SpongeBob on Prime Video, but not all of them. It almost seems like it's, like I said, a way station where like certain shows are kind of in a state of flux and they're like in between two services, or they're on their way from one to the other, and just Amazon will take it for a little bit. Like it's just, but I don't know, like in terms of originals, they put a lot of weight behind Wheel of Time. They put a lot of oomph behind that. I don't know how that's doing.
The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel is really good. That's a solid one.
I've heard that one's really good. I haven't watched any myself. My parents are really into that show. Shout out to my parents. They birthed me and raised me. Well, only one of them birthed me. My mom did. My dad was there. I watched, there's a show called Undone that was on Amazon, but like, and I watched it, was really good, but it was like, it flew under the radar. Like they probably have good content, but they're not, I don't know, there's just something about what they're doing that it's not.
There's not a lot of reach, and I don't know why. We watched a show, we'll talk about it later in our What Are You Up To, but there's another show that just, I feel like it kind of went under the radar, but it's super good, and I feel like they just didn't advertise it well enough.
Maybe this acquisition will give them the spot in the, I guess we'll call it on the front page of news, to where people will go, oh, I'm going to check it out.
So do you guys think that they're going to take the James Bond property 007? Do you think they're going to make it like a multiverse sort of deal, like the MCU, where there's theatrical releases and then there's also like side shows that you have to watch on Prime to like get into the rest of the movies?
I do not. I think James Bond, like, and the fans and the franchise are both just too old school for that.
You don't think though they'll introduce like tertiary characters who will then get their own like spin-off show on Amazon Prime? James
Bond will be exclusively to the big screen. I do see a world in which tertiary characters can be there, but I think it wouldn't be part of the main James Bond. What I think they would do is 009. They would do a different spin-off where maybe it's a little bit more lighthearted. Maybe it's a female or just a different focal point, but I don't think that they're going to take 007 away from the big screen. That said, I have a follow-on question for you guys. Would it be that crazy if the villain for the next 007 movie
got their own show
was Jeff Bezos?
Oh.
If he just inserted himself. I could see him doing that.
He's not going to do it. He's too busy going to space.
He inserted himself into space because he wanted to. Why wouldn't he insert himself into a movie?
Did you hear who he's going to space with? Or actually, I think they
said it Pete Davidson?
I think they said it was Pete Davidson, then it got canceled. But like, why was Pete Davidson going to space? Like, I don't have a problem with Pete Davidson
because he wanted to get high.
Good guy, but like, I just don't understand that. I don't think like I just don't know if James Bond, like, I love watching a James Bond movie. I think I've seen all the Daniel Craig ones, but like I don't feel like the franchise has a critical mass to support. Like, I think if they made a show even with a tertiary character, I don't think it would work, because I think people, the James Bond fandom, as diehard as some of them are, I think are just like, all right, I'm good for a movie every couple years. Otherwise, just like leave me alone.
Well, there was a lot of hype when they were looking at a more diverse James Bond. There was a lot of hype behind that, and that just never went through. And so I think by doing that, be it a female or a non-white dude, you could get a whole new audience potentially, and I think there's money to be had there.
I would love a series centered around Q. That would be dope.
Never gonna happen. I don't disagree, but I don't know. I have this sense, because like people who own James Bond, they've owned James Bond for 1 billion years. I'll never forget this person's name, Barbara Broccoli. That's who owns. And you can Google it. That's the truth. I'm not making that up. It sounds like a made up name, and it's not. Owns James Bond. And I think she's just like, just keep doing what we're doing. Like, you know, Techtic, you mentioned like they were thinking about going a different direction with who 007 was. Guess why they didn't? Because they're just really old school. Like, I think that's just their thing. They're just like, we're going to be classic old school.
No, I think they didn't because they felt that they had more time with Daniel Craig, and they did. They pumped out a couple more movies. Now he's officially reached his end, and I think that's something that's going to be revisited.
Did you see the latest James Bond movie?
No.
Okay. I was just curious what kind of context you had on the Daniel Craig thing, and again, I won't get into it, but yeah, it's a pretty good movie. The last one was. I don't know. I suppose I could see it. I wouldn't bet on that working. I don't know. And especially like Amazon shows, the more I think about it, I tried Jack Ryan. I couldn't get into it. I've heard Reacher is good, but it looks bad. Like it's just every time I see an Amazon show, I'm like, I don't know. I just don't know about this. And again, maybe it's just there's some, maybe they have an image problem on their with as far as streaming goes. Like I don't know what it is exactly, but maybe this will help them sort them out. Like you said, Techtic. I don't know. We will see. But in the meantime, I mean, it'd be nice to watch James Bond movies on Amazon Prime. I'm not sure that I think a couple of them are really hard to, like Casino Royale you can stream almost everywhere for whatever reason, but I think Skyfall is hard to, because Skyfall is really good. I think it's hard to find to stream. So hopefully this will make them all in a unified place, go stream them all here. I'm going to go watch the Pierce Brosnan ones if I want to. I've always wanted to watch GoldenEye, never have. So yeah. Good for you, Jeff Bezos. You've done it again. Cue the Bo Burnham song. One of the two Bo Burnham songs. Yeah, we're going to go to break, have a little jam sesh, not shout out a sponsor because we have none. But before we do have some people to shout out, and those are our Patreon producers, in particular, Mr. Stephen Keller. Stephen is a knight at our square/rectangular table, very sharp corners, but not as sharp as our swords, because we do have swords. I said swords at the first time I said swords. No one says it like that, even though that's how it's spelled. We don't have swords. That would be a hazard. If I had a sword, I'd probably cut myself in about 5 seconds. That's just who I am. Stephen wouldn't, though. Stephen's sure-handed. He's a knight, and he's valiant. And it is because he is so valiant and noble that he supports us at our highest of 3 levels on Patreon. He gets this producer shout-out. He gets input into our weekly game segment. He gets the occasional guest spot. And, of course, he gets access to the monthly secret segment and the vlog. There's also a Squire level of support, which is not quite as high as the Knight level, but it gets you access to the monthly secret segment and vlog. There's also a page which gets access to the monthly secret segment. And for details on any of those levels of support, you can head over to patreon.com/onlinewarriorspodcast. Check us out there. Help us keep the mics on. Go talk to Steven. Go talk to us. And get your hands on some great content. And don't buy a sword. I feel like I can't stress that enough. It's dangerous.
Or do.
I mean, you're probably an adult if you're listening to this. You can make your own choices, but just be careful, okay? And when you buy a sword, think of Steven. Think of our Patreon producer. We'll be right back.
Let's see, Alex. What do you think of Jaws, which is at 97% Rotten Tomatoes?
I find it to be anti-shark propaganda. What do you feel about the Entourage movie, which is at a meager 33%?
I think they finally got Hollywood right. How about It Follows, 97%?
Worse than your parents giving you the sex is evil talk. How do you feel about Juno, which is at 94%?
That would be a movie that celebrates a teenage homewrecker. How about Bewitched at 25%?
Best television adaptation ever put to film. How do you feel about American Hustle at a towering 93%?
Overwrought awards bait. Righteous Kill, 19%.
The movie that Michael Mann wishes he had made when he created Heat.
Sounds about right. I'm Julio.
I'm Alex, and we are the Contrarians.
As you can tell, our thing is that we rage against the Rotten Tomatoes machine.
Regardless of what we really feel.
Find us on Apple Podcasts, SoundCloud, Stitcher, TuneIn,
Facebook, Twitter, we're everywhere.
Miss Marvel, not Captain Marvel, but the suit looks the same. First of all, am I understanding that correctly? Is her suit supposed to look identical, or is it actually different? And
yeah, she's supposed to be
Captain
Marvel's #1 big fan.
Okay, so Miss Marvel, Kamala Khan, not Kamala. Isn't that what they... Did I get it wrong? Did I flip the pronunciations?
They said it in the trailer, and I immediately
I think you had it correct.
I think it's Kamala, but they say Kamala, and she corrects it. Well, the tape will tell the truth. This was a visually impressive trailer. I don't know, in particular at the beginning, all the comic booky stuff, I was very into that. I would love for that to persist through the show.
I think it's going to. I think it's going to be fourth wall breaking. I have the sneaking suspicion that it's going to be. It
went away in the back half of the trailer, and I was bummed about that because the playfulness of the first half was really cool.
I wonder if it won't be something where that's part of the episode opener. You know how all of the Marvel shows so far, don't they all have a little bit an opener, and then they have the credits, and then they roll into the rest of the episode?
Yeah.
So I wonder if the first little chunk of the episode is going to be, using that more comic booky motif.
Yeah. It reminded me a little bit of Into the Spider-Verse, even though, of course, this isn't animated. But it just it's trying to be as evocative as possible of the original medium, right? Which I think is a good thing to do. As far as the story goes and the premise, I do think I think this is a likable character. I think this is maybe one of Marvel's potentially more relatable characters. You know, this is not a Captain Marvel who is a fighter pilot and then becomes a superhero, right? It's not
even
Doctor
like a
Strange
Peter
who is
Parker.
a surgeon.
Like, he's pretty much a super smart kid, you know? He's like this, I don't even
He's
understand.
like on par with me.
Yeah. He's
And
basically
even-
master's degree Techtic in high school.
But taking that example of Peter Parker, like, I think even like what the reason Spider-Man is so popular as a character and in the movies, but also just in general, is that he is more of like he's the anti-Tony Stark, right? He's the anti-Batman. He is like, this kid got bit by a spider, but he's an ordinary kid at large, and that could be you. Like, that's kind of the whole fantasy of comic books in a way, right? Is you can have this power too, or you can, could the thought of like, if you had a superpower, could you wield it? I think Miss Marvel is looking to rip some more meat off of those bones, and there's a lot of meat left on those bones right now because, like you said, Spider-Man scratches that itch in a way, but Peter Parker is still like this genius kid who like has a lot of things going for him. Right. And
Right.
Like, not that Kamala Khan doesn't, but
I mean, she's pretty much in the principal's office in this trailer, and he's telling her like, you're zoning out and you have no like plans for your future. And even though we are no longer in high school, I feel like that's a very relatable premise, because even as an adult, like, okay, yeah, you mostly have your life kind of figured out, but I still am not convinced that any adult actually does have their life figured out. I think a lot of people are like still searching for that thing, that gives their life meaning and purpose. Yeah. And I think this is a super relatable concept, that she's literally just a nerd super fan who happens upon powers. She's nothing like super extraordinary. She's a normal person who happens upon superpowers. And I think that's super cool.
Right.
I don't think she happens upon them. It appears in the trailer that she finds Kree technology. It looks like Kree technology to me. And that would track with the way the comic book works with it, is she gets her powers from Kree technology. But I want to know why the heck that was just in her attic. That's the thing that I can't sort of piece together. And
Right.
that, again, to your guys' points, to just find a piece of tech to give you all your powers, that makes it even more, hey, this could be you, kids. So rummage through your parents' attic and see what kind of sketchy stuff they have and play with it.
And if you don't find superpowers, you might find Jumanji, so bring bug spray.
Also, legal team says don't do what I just said.
And also don't buy swords, but maybe do. It's up to you. Like, I don't know, like the powers themselves, to me, they're pretty nebulous. But when they're not nebulous, like what I'm worried about, I guess, the big hands thing, I don't think it's cinematic. I think it's kind of weird. Like,
Well, they
my
have the
concern
big
is like,
hands, but it's like projected big hands.
yeah, it's like cinema-fied, which I think is a smart choice. But even in that context, I think they got to be careful.
I think they did a good job from what we saw in the trailers.
And like I think Ant-Man is similar in that it's always walking a very fine line. And like, as Marvel movies go, Ant-Man is one of the ones that probably takes itself the least seriously, because it can't, right? Like it's a kind of comical premise, and the powers themselves are very, very hard to put on screen convincingly. And like, I don't think that Miss Marvel's powers have that same thing to the same degree, but I don't want to see giant fists flying around. That just, to me, it's kind of goofy. And maybe I'm the only person that feels that way. But I do think going with the like whole cosmic energy aspect of it and kind of putting that forward, I think is a smart choice. And hopefully they stick to that.
I agree.
Yeah. Miss Marvel, do we have a release date? I'm sure we do. June 8th, 2022 is when Miss Marvel will be hitting the small screen. I will probably still be busy watching Obi-Wan Kenobi. That's my immediate concern. They got to make sure they space these out. I mean, you got Moon Knight March 30th. You got Obi-Wan Kenobi May 25th. That's a pretty good gap. Between May 25th and June 8th, that's 2 weeks. They got to be careful.
Better get it done.
They're thinking the fan bases might be different enough there, but I'm not sure that they are. We'll see, but that's when we can look forward to it. This takes us to, what are you up to Wednesday? I feel like I've been going first a lot, so I'm going to not go first. And I'm going to prove to the world that chivalry is not dead, at least not in the world of Online Warriors podcasting. I'm going to turn it over to Nerdbomber. Nerdbomber bombs away.
So we watched Upload Season 2, and this is the Amazon Prime show that I was talking about. And this is a show by Greg Daniels. It's super good. And I think it was very under advertised. So the first season actually came out, I think it was like 2 or 3 years ago. And the premise is basically that when you die, you have the option, if it's caught before you're completely out, to upload your consciousness, and then you'll live out your days in this virtual utopia, right? This VR world. Your loved ones who are still alive can come visit you, and everything is kind of predicated on money, though. Like, if you have the money to buy a bunch of gigs of data, you can live a super lavish lifestyle. If you don't, you basically get to just pal around in a dumpy little room. And the kind of utopia obviously has to have customer support and people on hand to, be at the beck and call of their customers in this uploaded world. And so there's a relationship that forms between somebody who's uploaded and his kind of handler in the virtual world. And there's it's kind of weird because it's a half-hour show, and it does manage to pack in a decent amount of content. Like, they tackle some interesting concepts, obviously, wealth gap and, what people should be entitled to and what should be like basic human rights sort of conversations, like what uploading and like human consciousness means, and like what happens if they make copies, and like privacy concerns and all that kind of stuff when you're in this like digital landscape. But it's also kind of funny, and I think the relationship between the characters, and not even necessarily the main like romantic interest, but also just, the main character and the friends he makes in this uploaded VR world, I think are pretty compelling. So season 2 just came out. I don't want to spoil anything, but there are only 7 episodes in the second season, only 10 in the first. Like I said, it kind of feels like, for a show that is pretty well received critically, I don't understand why Amazon isn't really doing a lot more to advertise. And I mean, yeah, when you log into Amazon Prime Video, it's like, the big advertisement splash tile thing right at the top. But I don't think a lot of people really know too much about it. And I remember when it first came out, I remember thinking, maybe I'll check that out because I like Greg Daniels. And then my sister-in-law watched it and said it wasn't that good. That's my reasoning. But yes, Amazon splash ads, I get those every time I turn on my Fire Stick, which is every day. So I did see that it came out, but I don't know. Are you telling me to distrust my sister-in-law? Because I'm willing to do that. I mean, I
need to hear it from you.
I don't know. Did you ever watch The Good Place?
I didn't finish The Good Place. And that was another thing I wanted to mention. Like, it sounds similar, and The Good Place.
If that wasn't your cup of tea, then it's not going to be up your alley for sure. But so we really liked The Good Place. So for us, I feel like it was good. But Techtic, I don't know. You probably have your own opinion.
Season 1 of The Good Place was incredible. And then they kind of, I don't want to say they jumped the shark because that's too harsh, but like they kind of pulled their big gotcha at the end of season 1. I was like, wow. And then it was all downhill after that because they kind of did their best trick. I feel like, I don't know, maybe that. And like, I think we watched into like season 3. I don't know how many seasons of that show there are, but that was another thing. I saw the trailer for Upload and was thinking, this is very similar to a show that I think at the time I was like, I just stopped watching The Good Place and was like, better not. And maybe I made the right choice, but I'm glad you liked it. Techtic, what did you think of it?
I thought season 2 was actually better than season 1. I liked season 2 a lot because it really focused on giving everyone an equal opportunity at this upload experience, and I'm all for helping the little guy. So I really liked season 2.
Is it known, I guess without giving spoilers, is it known that season 3 is coming down the pipe, or would saying so be too much of a...
I don't think that it was necessarily confirmed. I didn't Google, I probably should have, but I will say, and this isn't, I don't know if this would be classified as a spoiler, but there are definitely some cliffhangers at the end of season 2, so I would be shocked if they didn't at least round it out with a 3rd season.
Good to know. Cool. What else have you been up to?
That's honestly kind of been it. I've been watching a lot of hockey. We're getting into like meaningful kind of games here in March because, the playoff heat is dead on and there's a lot of teams competing for those final wild card spots. So watching...
The trade deadline was today.
It was all right. There were no big splashy moves that I felt, but I mean, it's always kind of entertaining to see what teams do. And honestly, I actually ended up getting ESPN Plus for a month, and there are a lot of hockey games on there, so I have been watching hockey a little bit more intently. Normally I just watch my favorite team, but there have been a lot of games that are just on that I usually don't have access to. So I've been getting a good landscape of a bunch of different teams around the league, and it's fun. It's an interesting experience, and I don't know if you find this too. I know you primarily watch football. Illeagle, you're not a big hockey guy.
That's true.
But it's a different experience watching other teams than it is watching your own team.
It's totally different. But and I don't know if you play fantasy hockey. I don't know if that's your thing, but like playing fantasy football or starting to back when that was like 15 years ago for me at this point, but like starting to play fantasy football kind of opened up my eyes to like watching football games that are not focused on your favorite team or your home team or whichever it may be. It's just a completely different viewing experience. And I fully believe that hockey would be exactly the same way. So I totally know what you mean. It's less stressful, certainly.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot more like it's easy, like you said, to kind of put it on in the background, and it's just kind of there, and it's comforting.
And you can appreciate like the flashy plays that other teams are really good at because they're not scoring against you. So then you're just like, wow, that was a cool hockey play.
Right.
So that's kind of been me.
T-Bone.
So we watched 2 movies. The first one that I want to talk about is the sequel to 13 Going on 30, The Atom Project. This movie focuses on... You see what I did there? If you know the cast.
Yeah. I laughed. Yeah.
So this is a time travel movie. I don't really want to spoil it, but it's basically there's a kid and future himself is Ryan Reynolds, and there's some time travel shenanigans, which, by the way in which they explained it all tracks. I'm good with the way they did time travel in this one. Sometimes it's hit or miss, but this was okay by me.
Yeah, I didn't hate the logic here.
And I gotta say, all in all, quite entertaining, action-packed movie, and I really liked thinking of it as a 13 Going on 30 sequel. That makes me very happy. Then the other,
it looks very generically good.
yeah,
Like, I don't have
probably
anything
the really good way to like it. It wasn't like knocks me out of my seat. It was generic good. It was
like it doesn't excite me, but I bet it's good. Like it's like one of those. I don't know. It's like one of those things. But what was the other movie?
And the other one, which is a little bit more, I guess, depressing, because we like to round ourselves out in here. On Hulu, we watched a movie called Together. So this one stars Sharon Horgan and James McAvoy, and it's basically like they're being interviewed through the pandemic and everything that they experienced as a family. And there's some heavy moments. I found a lot of relatable moments personally, and it's really grounding, and for people who maybe just didn't really experience anything during the pandemic, it kind of lets you see kind of what did happen to some families. So I thought it was a grounding. I thought it was a good movie. It was certainly a somber movie, but it's definitely worth a watch if you want to see something like that. Prepare yourself for feeling a little depressed after. And then the last
it doesn't sound like an upper at all.
I will say it was one of those things, though, where it's super depressing, but it almost feels like it should be required watching, in a sense, to just kind of understand some people's experience, and that it wasn't just like, work from home,
The Rotten Tomato critics consensus. Together is a little too effective at creating the lockdown experience. Like that's, and they go on to say like Sharon Horgan and James McAvoy are an appealing duo, and it's got a 71%. So like critics liked it, but to say that it's too effective at creating the lockdown experience, that gives me pause.
Well,
as far as seeking this movie out.
I would say probably about 30 to 45 minutes of this movie that are incredibly real. And Techtic, I don't know how you felt about it, but I think that the writers must have experienced what happened.
Or at least interviewed people who did.
It was surprisingly spot on.
Yeah. Well, I might watch it if I'm in the mood for that sort of thing, which has happened, but right now I'm not. So I'm surprised you guys watched that. It's pretty real. It's like pretty current.
Sometimes you watch things to feel related to. Fair. But then the more exciting thing is I pre-ordered a game, guys.
Go on.
Tiny Tina's Wonderland is officially been pre-ordered.
Okay.
And I am so excited. Less than a week, I will be crushing it. So expect reviews on that.
Well, whoop whoop. That's my excited noise. You're pre-ordering new games. I'm back in 2007, y'all. It's What Are You Up To Wednesday. It's Illeagle's turn. That means time to go down the trail of what has Illeagle been doing in Mass Effect, because that's basically what my updates are going to be for a while. Hit a couple major milestones this week. The first one, and the one that I think is most interesting, the game gave me my first opportunity to get horny.
Did you take it?
I think I blew it. Let me, and maybe I'm overselling. Like, so
With who?
I'm going pretty. Well, I'm going pretty hard in Paragon. So like, I think that's unlocking dialogue options for me. I legitimately don't know if the dialogue option I selected was good or bad, because the typical layout of the dialogue is on the right side of the option circle, you have the top one is your Paragon answer, the middle one is your whatever answer, and the bottom one is your I'm a jerk answer. And I'm always on either the top or the middle. But then occasionally the game will be like, hey, over here on the left, there's some other option. And I'm like, what's that? And so I was having a conversation. I was in between missions. I had finished up on Pharos and I was headed to Novaria. And I was on the ship, just kind of like going around chatting with folks, seeing what I could find out, that sort of thing. And I struck up a dialogue with Ashley Williams.
I knew it.
Oh no.
And she let me
She's
explain
the
what happened.
worst.
Because
we're going to be wiener cousins if it goes the way that I think it's going.
Well, so what happened, and you said, Nerdbomber, she's the worst. The conversation was literally me being like, Williams, how you doing? And she's like, I hate aliens. Like her whole thing, the whole conversation was like, do you think it's okay to have these aliens on the ship? And I was like, again, I'm going pretty hard Paragon. So I was basically like, I'm not a racist. This is fine. You need to chill the heck out. And then she kind of, towards the end of the conversation, was
just
like,
do me?
No, she was like, if anything, it was the opposite. She was like, you got it, Commander. I was like, just make sure you follow orders or something. And she was like, you got it, Commander.
Wait.
If you tell me to kiss anyone on the crew, I'll just ask who or something. And I got the dialogue option of like, it was like, would you kiss me or something? So it was like she was like, I'd kiss any of these aliens. And then my dialogue option was, would you kiss anyone I asked you to kiss? And I clicked it. Like, look, that's why play a game if you're not going to.
So you're starting to get sweaty at this point.
I'm not sweaty. I'm just like, I'm mostly amused and like wondering what's going to happen. And she's like, she's like, well, I wouldn't kiss a commanding officer because they would be like insubordination or something, or like it would be breaking the rules, basically. And she's like, and if I was ordered to, I'd have to report the commanding officer and like relieve him of command, because it's like she went crazy, like authoritative, like hell no, man, to me. And I was like, whoa, okay, learn my lesson. And now she's on a mission with me. And nothing has happened. My mission on Pharos was I took the Krogan and Garrus Vicarian, and I was just broing out with those dudes. And then I was like, on Novaria, I was like, I'm gonna get jiggy with it, and I'm gonna bring Ashley Williams and is it the Quarian? Kali. Tali, the girl with the mask who says very cryptic things and really amuses me, for what it's worth. Really amuses me. So we're doing our thing right now, and we went to Novaria. I don't know if you remember Novaria, but the other thing that happened was I kind of waltzed into this place, and they were like giving me a bunch of grief for having a weapon, because apparently it's like corporate owned or something. I don't know. And I go in and I see one of those merchant guys. I don't know what species they are. The aliens that talk weird, you know what I'm talking about. They look like a piece of chewed gum. So I go up to this guy, and I'm like, do you have anything to buy? And he's like, yes. I look at it. It's all too expensive. That's my experience, by the way, with the shops. Everything's too expensive so far, and I'm pretty early in the game, so it makes sense. But then he's like, can you smuggle? And he says it weird because he's like that alien species. He's like, would this one be interested in smuggling, like transporting goods through the checkpoint for me? And I'm Paragon, so I'm like, that's smuggling, you rube. And I give him a hard time. And he's like, if you change your mind, just come back. And then I go to the administrator's office, and because I need to like ask him for a pass to go somewhere or something. I don't know the story, but I immediately sell this smuggler out.
So you played,
and I'm wondering.
Narc.
I played Narc, and I feel a little bad about like as soon as I did it, because like I had all kinds of options of like. I think so. I narked, and he was like, the administrator was like, okay, go get the package that he was going to give out and bring it to me. So I did. But then when I went back to him, he was like, he asked me like, did you have the package? Do you have the package for me? And I had the option to lie and say I didn't. And I don't know why I would do that, but I didn't. I just gave him the package. But it was some gun for like a Krogan bounty hunter. I probably nuked an entire cool subplot that I could have experienced with like this Krogan bounty hunter doing some kind of vaguely illegal thing that was cool. And I feel bad about it. So like I'm working my way through that of like I may need to loosen my restrictions on just being a good dude all the time, because it might not be very fun all the time. Like, you know, that's
The world
that's
isn't black and white. There's
it's
gray,
the very
fun
real
area.
world takeaway. And yeah, for all I knew, like the Krogan bounty hunter like had very good intentions. And then and by the way, like when I gave the package to the administrator, the first thing I did, I walked out, went right back to the salesman guy and was like, "Hey, I ratted you out, you jerk." And he was like, "No." I laughed. I was like, it was really funny because it was this alien speaking in this monotone, weird language, getting upset with me, and I was like, "Whatever, man," and then just walked away. And then I went to the Krogan bounty hunter because I was like, I gotta find this guy, and just like talk to him and see if there's anything else I can do with him. And I went up to him
And he was like,
I
"You're a
heard
jerk."
he was like, "I heard you stole that weapon that I was trying to get." And I was like, "Yeah, but I needed it to do this thing." And he was like, "I actually understand. That's pretty cool." And he walked away. I was like, "Wow." But I feel like I've missed, because there was like this other, in order to get the pass without riding the smuggler out, I had to like do a bunch of other stuff. I feel like I may have short circuited the game in a way, and I don't feel good about it.
But they
So
give you
I'm like,
those options for a reason. Like they're
They give
there.
me options for a reason, and I what I'm saying is that was my first real taste, because like everything I did on Pharos was very linear, just like kind of do the things and you'll get rewarded basically. This was the first like real decision about like how I was gonna like interact with people and like play the game beyond like being a jerk to people in dialogue, which I don't know, like that doesn't really count, I feel like. So it's interesting. It's an ongoing thing. And I'll be giving many more Mass Effect updates, I'm sure, to Nerdbomber's delight.
It sounds like you're having a 10 out of 10 experience so far.
I'm having a great time. The graphics are not good. Like the remaster has like
We're just
at
going to
one
make
point,
that into a
They can
soundbite.
only
You
do so
saying
much.
the graphics are not good. The graphics are not
At
good.
one point, my fiance went by and was like, "Why is he wearing eyeliner?" I was like, "I don't know." Like, because she's right. If you look at Shepard's eyes, it's like he's always wearing eyeliner or something.
Dude,
I don't
you
know. It's this
customized
weird
those
character
eyes.
model thing. Well, I didn't do that.
That's on
I
you.
I went with the stock Shepard character. I honestly don't know can you customize at the beginning? You can make him look however you want. I just kept him the regular dude.
Yeah,
So
you
I guess
can.
it is
I
my
mean,
fault.
there are customization options. They're pretty good. They're not
The only
like
customization option I know of, like you can put his helmet on him if you want to make him look like a dork, but that's like the only thing I am aware of. So I must have missed that. Character models 6 out of 10. Gameplay experience 9 to 10 out of 10 so far. I'll continue to update.
I feel like this story only gets better as you go, as do your relationships with the characters. So I'm excited for you, because if you're enjoying it now, then there's so much goodness down the road. My heart is just so warm. It has grown like 5 sizes now that you've finally given the game a chance and you actually like it.
I'm currently chasing the big boob lady. You know who I'm talking about?
Oh yeah.
The Asari matriarch, who's, you know, showing some cleavage, and she's out in the snow somewhere. I have to like go find her. It's great. I'm having a good time. As you can tell, I'm not taking it too seriously, but I am taking my decisions personally, as you can also tell from my update. So more updates to come, but for now, I think it's quiz time. So I'll turn it over to Nerdbomber, I think, is the host this week. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. And our quiz is very topical, all about Ms. Marvel. This was actually a really interesting one. There's not a lot of numerical trivia out there for this, so I had to do some due diligence here. As always, this is Price is Right style. Whoever is closest to the numerical answer without going over gets the point. And I have 5 questions for you both. We will have Illeagle go first, and then you'll go every other back and forth.
Quick record update before you start. I'm 4-3. Techtic is 3-4. Nerdbomber is also 3-4. Steven 1-0. So it's a dead heat here. It's a lot on the line. So I plan for my price to be right rather than wrong, but we'll see how it goes.
All right. When was Ms. Marvel first introduced in the Marvel universe?
Who is it? Me first?
Yes, it is.
It's me. Miss Marvel. Is it Miss Marvel or Ms. Marvel? You keep saying Ms. Marvel.
Ms. Marvel. MS.
I'm going to say Ms. Marvel is a very 90s character. I think she's a very late comer to the game. And so I'm going to say 1991.
I think you're correct in that she's a latecomer, but she was even later than that. I want to say it was like 2002 or 2005, but to be safe, I'm going to go 2002.
Okay, you guys actually busted. So Ms. Marvel has existed in the comic book universe since 1976.
Okay, no. When you say who
Okay, let me finish the rest of this trivia background.
She's the quiz master, man. Come on.
this isn't Kamala.
Several characters have used the moniker since that time, including Carol Danvers, who took the mantle briefly before she became Captain Marvel. So, the character of Ms. Marvel has existed since 1976. Maybe not in the form that we currently will see in the MCU rendition, but has existed since 1976, and y'all both busted.
She tricked us, man. That's not cool. Well, we'll keep going anyways.
So the new iteration of Ms. Marvel as the character was, the first time that a Muslim character would headline a comic book, which obviously drew widespread attention, and it was actually a Hugo winner for Best Graphic Story. In what year?
So this was 2005.
I gotta stick to my guns here. I'm gonna say 1991 again. Just hope you're busted.
So Techtic gets his first point here. So Ms. Marvel, the first volume, won the Hugo Award for Best Graphic Story in 2015. So fairly recently.
That's very, very recent. I was only like 24 years off. So far, so good.
All right, this one, I don't expect either of you to have background knowledge on. So that first trade paperback, Ms. Marvel Volume 1, No Normal, is the title. What is the sum of all of the digits in the ISBN number for Ms. Marvel Volume 1, No Normal, the first trade paperback?
I don't even know how much. You said there's 4 numbers in an ISBN?
I did not say how many numbers are in an ISBN, but this is the sum of all of the digits in an ISBN.
I think it's more than 4. Boy, what a crapshoot. Let me just say that right away. 32.
Techtic, what you got for us?
It's more than that. I'm going to say 45.
Techtic gets his second point. The sum of that ISBN is 66. There are actually 2 different ISBNs. The one that I referenced is an ISBN 10, but there is also ISBNs with 13 digits, just for the book inclined.
Just so you know my math, I did 9 plus 8 plus 7 plus 6 plus 5 plus 4 plus 3 plus 2 plus 1.
Not a bad tactic.
We're all very impressed. There's 2 questions left, so I have to get these both right. Is that where we are?
Yep. So...
Okay, easy.
Ms. Marvel has a bunch of different powers, one of which includes the ability to alter her size, meaning she can shrink and enlarge herself, kind of similar to what Ant-Man is able to do. When she becomes bigger, when she enlarges herself, how many tons can she lift, according to comic book lore?
He's doing the 9 plus 8 plus 7 trick again.
I'm going to say 3.5 tons.
Oh, it's more than that. I'm going to use my +1 here strategically and say 4.5.
All right, so this gives Illeagle his first point. She can lift up to 75 tons. So right now, this is a very close game. Techtic has 2, Illeagle has 1. And we're going into our final question. According to Wikipedia, how many voice actors have voiced Kamala Khan?
Techtic has the advantage. He has the +1 left. So I have to get this exactly correct. How many voice actors have voiced Kamala Khan?
Yep.
I have to just go all in. I have to go. Trick question is 1.
I'm going to go with 2.
And Techtic takes this home. There have been 7 voice actors for the character, including the likes of Ashley Birch, Priyanka Chopra, and Sandra Saad.
I feel like that happened so fast. I did not like it.
What,
the
you
way
losing?
The losing and
yeah,
the
I came in
winning.
hot.
It was very unpleasant. Techtic came with his guns loaded. I have to give him credit. He moves to 4-4, tied with me at 4-4 for the quiz lead on the year. Nerdbomber at 3-4 will get her chance next week to knock me down even further when we get quizzed on topic TBD. Steven, 1-0. Congratulations to Steven, undefeated on the year. That's feather for your cap. We're going to take off, but before we do, at Online Warriors 1, at OW Illeagle86, at OW Techtic, at OW Nerdbomber, those are our Twitter handles. I did not mention them until now. So if you've been thinking, how do I get in touch with these people? Tell them how wrong they are. Tell Illeagle to stop complaining about graphics. That's how you do it. Hit us up on Twitter. Let's have a conversation there. We can also have a conversation on Apple Podcast reviews. You can leave us a review there and let us know what you think of the show. And I mentioned our Patreon before. If you're interested in giving back to the show, if you liked what you listened to, whether it was for the first time or for the 100th time, you can head to patreon.com/Online Warriors Podcast. Check us out there. And with all that in mind, I will bid thee good afternoon, good evening, and good night. And I will turn it over to Techtic for this week's Tech Tip.
This winter was pretty rough. So if you found yourself eating a lot of food and you gained a little bit of weight and you're just kind of trying to figure out what to do with yourself, why not take up being a psychic medium or something? Because then with the weight you gain, it'll make you a fortune teller.
Have a good night.